Welcome back, sports fans. Thank you for coming back to see me. I am Johnny Gaz. You have come back for a monumental video. We are going to do a Super Bowl 58 preview. Obviously, we know we have the San Francisco 49ers versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's dive into it. So we have a rematch of Super Bowl 54. We have the Michael Jordan of the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Andy Reid, versus the mystery relevant-led Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers come in with a 12-5 record after finishing first in the NFC West, and the Kansas City Chiefs come in with a 11-6 record. They finished in first in the AFC West. Now, I would say both teams are coming in kind of in different states, different state of affairs. We have the San Francisco 49ers coming off an epic comeback. Let me say two epic comebacks here in the playoffs. Unfortunately, as a salty Lions fan, they are coming off a victory against my Detroit Lions. But San Francisco has proven with the talent that they have all over the field, not only on offense, defense, special teams, they are loaded with talent all over the place. They have proven themselves that they can now overcome even the biggest of deficits. Brock Purdy, after being ridiculed all season long, pretty much his whole career to this point, being a game-managing quarterback, is now coming in looking efficient and almost to the point of MVP status. The Kansas City Chiefs, of course, are bringing in their MVP, their Michael Jordan, the jack of all trades, Patrick Mahomes. He is magical when it comes to playing quarterback. He is the elite of the elite, and he is leading a hot Kansas City Chiefs team into the Super Bowl. They are playing fantastic defense. They are young. They are energetic. They are really putting their foot down late in the season through the playoffs, and they are hot as can be entering Super Bowl 58. Now, like I said, this is a rematch of Super Bowl 54. Obviously, Kansas City won that Super Bowl. Score was 31-20, and of course, Patrick Mahomes was MVP. This will be Kansas City's fourth appearance in the Super Bowl in the last 5 years. They've won two of those, and they have been on a dynasty-like run. A win here would solidify that. And again, just an amazing run for that organization. Kansas City is also looking to win back-to-back Super Bowls for the first time since 03-04. The New England Patriots, Tom Brady, those old teams. What an accomplishment that would be for this Kansas City Chiefs team. And for San Francisco entering this game, this will be their 8th Super Bowl appearance in their franchise's history, and they are one of the more storied franchises in the NFL. The Super Bowl will take place for the very first time in Las Vegas, Nevada. It will be at the amazing Allegiant Stadium where the Las Vegas Raiders play. The game will be on Sunday, February 11th, Super Bowl Sunday. Of course, we know that 6:30 p.m., probably a little after that for kickoff, and it will be on CBS, also streaming on Paramount+. Speaking of Vegas, we have to mention the odds. They have fluctuated to this point a little up and down. I believe when it started the week, it was -1 in favor of Kansas City. As of today, Wednesday of Super Bowl week, it is now -2.5 San Francisco. The over-under for this game is 47.5. Let's discuss some injuries. We obviously have to address that and see how the teams are coming into this game. I do want to mention they did have George Kittle listed on the injury report yesterday with a toe. However, he is expected to play. He is as tough as can be. And I again, fully expect him to be 100% ready to go for the game. For Kansas City, a little bit of a different story. That Charles Omenihu has the ACL injury. He is out. He is expected to have surgery. I think he might have already had that as of this point, Wednesday of Super Bowl week. We also had Isaiah Pacheco listed with a toe. He is expected to play. And again, he's been really good for them. I do not expect him to be hindered by this injury. Joe Thuney is a little bit of a different story. He has a pectoral issue, and he is currently day-to-day. I actually saw an update from Ian Rappaport speaking on this, just basically indicating that he is actually day to day. So Chiefs are dealing with a little bit of an injury there, but I think ultimately both teams are entering decently healthy and coming in about as good as they could. Let's start with the San Francisco 49ers. Like I said, they are coming off of a season where they were 12-5. They were first in the NFC West. They got the bye and were the first seed coming out of the NFC. They struggled against the Packers in the first half, fell down early, were able to recover and win that game. They then faced my Detroit Lions, who looked as if they were just going to roll themselves into a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, San Francisco put their foot down. Their talent came to the front. Brock Purdy played very well. Their defense came alive. They made plays when they needed to. And they, again, overcame a 17-point deficit in the second half to make themselves just super dangerous entering the Super Bowl. We all know the story of their quarterback, Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. He has worked himself into a situation where people now have talked about him in the light of MVP. It's kind of crazy to think about that. I think there's a lot of argument, and we won't go deep dive into that here today. The truth is he's played really good football when it mattered most, okay? And he's had 2 great second halves in the playoffs. And if he continues that play, that could mean good things for the San Francisco 49ers. He has been highly efficient, and he has the talent out in front of him. If he can just get Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk the ball, other folks that they have. Speaking of talent on that team, they are littered with it all over the field. We just mentioned 2 of them there. Obviously, they have George Kittle, who we mentioned in the injury report. But Christian McCaffrey, let's feature him for just a moment. He was the best back in the league this year, coming from Carolina last year to San Francisco, putting his stamp on just being that bell cow, not only of San Francisco, but of the entire league. He's almost a guaranteed touchdown every single game, and I would highly suggest betting on him as the first touchdown scorer. I think that's a really good bet heading into the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about that in another video. But he is a fantastic player. I expect him to play a big role Super Bowl Sunday. They also have the same type of players on defense, just playmaker all over the place. The 2 I want to feature right now, Fred Warner in the linebacker position, and obviously Nick Bosa up front on the defensive line. He can wreak havoc on any team. He's done so all year long. He is just a force to be reckoned with. And if he can sustain some pressure in this game, it could make a difference. It could mean everything for the San Francisco 49ers. They move him all over the defensive line now. They really typically only rush 4 guys, so he becomes so important in that scheme because he needs to get home. And if he's able to do that, I think some good things for San Francisco will happen. So reasons why San Francisco can win this Super Bowl, will win this Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, he's been super efficient this year. Like I said, he's played 2 fantastic second halves to bring his team back. He's made the plays necessary to get them to where they need to be. Whether or not he's a game manager or not, he may just game manage them into a Super Bowl 58 victory. The offense can win in a multitude of ways. We talked about Christian McCaffrey. We've spent a little bit of time on Brock Purdy. We've talked about all the weapons that they have on offense. There is no stopping the type of ways that they can get to you. I mean, they can attack you from all angles, on the ground, play action, through the air. It's just nonstop, and this team just keeps on coming. So this is a huge matchup in the Super Bowl, is can San Francisco's offense be what they need to be against a very stout Kansas City defense? And we'll talk about them in that preview. San Francisco, like we've said, has overcome deficits twice now, 2 large deficits in the playoffs. So you have to imagine that puts them with confidence and feels like they can battle through anything. So no matter what happens in this game, whether they fall down early, they can overcome that. They've done it. Now that puts you in a tough spot, but they've proven it. So they got to feel good about themselves. And I have to mention again, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he's just been dominant, impressive this playoff, again, with 4 touchdowns in 2 playoff games. Again, I expect him to have a big day. Now let's talk about those negatives. Why would San Francisco lose this football game? How do they lose Super Bowl 58? Well, as we mentioned, as a confidence booster with those 2 comebacks, you can also look at that as a negative. They have not played well to open up these 2 playoff games, and they have to play better. I don't know that you can fall behind to this Kansas City team and expect the same result. I saw a stat that they were minus 16 in first halves in these playoffs. That's incredible. And if it happens again, I think they are in trouble. San Francisco has not been able to stop the run, especially recently and in these playoffs. Now, they've played two decent teams. Obviously, Detroit, a much better running attack than maybe the Packers had, but they played really good. Aaron Jones had a fantastic game for them. Detroit also showed that they ran the football very well, and it's kind of the formula to beat San Francisco. If you can, maintain the run game, you got a really good shot. Unfortunately, San Francisco hasn't been good, and they've given up 266 yards on the ground in 2 games in these playoffs. It's just too much. Now, we talked about how efficient Brock Purdy has been for this team, but again, you're taking that risk. I think he's also shown that he's prone to maybe making a rookie or second-year mistake, and he's not perfect. And you're entering the Super Bowl against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who have been there before. You're relying on him to come up big in those moments. So that's a very risky game to play, and we'll see what happens for Purdy. Now let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. As I mentioned, they were 11-6 this regular season, first in the AFC West. They were a little bit up and down, to be honest with you, this year. I think, entering the season, there was a lot of confidence behind that team. A few injury bug things up front sort of prevented maybe them from really taking off, but they have hit their stride towards the end of the season and now into the playoffs. I believe they've won their last 5 games and have just looked really good. Their defense, like I said, led by Steve Spagnuolo, has been energetic, efficient. They've really gotten after it. They've tackled well. They held Baltimore down. I mean, let's be honest. That is maybe one of the toughest offenses to solve with Lamar Jackson. They were able to solve that equation. So they're playing really well. And you can't speak enough on Patrick Mahomes, the offense, Andy Reid, so you always have that danger built in. And so they're coming in very hot. They are dangerous. As we said, Patrick Mahomes faced the league. Been here before, been there, done that. I mean, there is nobody who is entering this game with probably more confidence. No matter what he surrounds himself with, he seems to stay calm and cool and is the Michael Jordan of the NFL. Although this was his worst season in 2023 statistically, and maybe even by the eye test, this has been the opposite for him now in the playoffs. He has been absolutely amazing and back to form. He's had 11 TDs to 0 interceptions and a 70% completion rating, on top of the fact that we know what kind of magic he can work in these big moments. So, again, you got to feel good about that if you're going in for Kansas City. They also have playmakers all over the field. We know Travis Kelce's story, and we haven't touched on it just yet. Don't worry, we will get there. But he is a fantastic tight end. He is getting towards the end of his career, and he wants this game, believe me, for a multitude of reasons. Isaiah Pacheco on the ground has proven that he's a microwave, right? He never stops. He just keeps on going. I love watching him run. Those legs churn, and they've really been able to do some things with him on the ground. So you combine that with, Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and they've really got something cooking there. So let's talk those positives. Why will Kansas City win this football game? How does Kansas City win Super Bowl 58? Well, we just got out of it. We mentioned their defense. They actually led the league in sacks this year with 63. And this is the first time they're actually going to enter the Super Bowl with that moniker. So being the team with the highest sacks. I think when they played the Eagles last year, the Eagles came in with one more sack than they did. So, again, they played very well. And that sack number certainly says it, but the eye test would prove it over the course of the playoffs, where they have really been good on defense. We mentioned Mahomes being back to form, and Kelce also, maybe not his best year as he gets a little bit older, but again, in the playoffs, he's been really, really good. He's had 23 catches, Travis Kelce, with 3 touchdowns. So that is a dangerous combination. I believe that they connect in Super Bowl 58 again. All right, let's get into it, right? We're not going to have a preview show of the Super Bowl without talking about Taylor Swift. And I have no problem with Taylor Swift. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke or throw hate or shade, whatever you want to say. The truth is, I bring it up because, to me, it's a small factor. I mean, you can't say the NFL isn't happy that she's involved. Let's be honest. Obviously, Travis Kelce is thrilled with this whole thing. It brings a spotlight on a lot of things, and you could look at this as both a positive and a negative as far as a game preview, right? I mean, I think in the big scheme of things, big picture, Travis Kelce is coming in fully loaded, ready to go, no distractions, and he wants to win a Super Bowl. I really believe that. Whatever the shenanigans will be before or after the game, and we may talk about that in another video, so be on the lookout for that. I think he comes in focused. So, I think they've proven all year that they can overcome. They've been really hot, like I said, the last 5 games. So I don't think this is a distraction enough to prevent them from winning a Super Bowl. Now let's go to a few negatives. Why would the Kansas City Chiefs lose this game? How do they lose Super Bowl 58? Well, we did talk about how good their defense has been, but let's focus on one particular player up front. Chris Jones really hasn't shown up so far in the last 2 playoff runs, the last 2 Super Bowl runs that Kansas City has had. And I think Rich Eisen mentioned this on his show. He's had 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss, 0 QB hits. And that was over his 3 Super Bowl appearances, believe it or not. So he's got to come up big. They need to get to Brock Purdy, put pressure on him, make Brock Purdy make mistakes. He's going to be a big part of that. We know that Kansas City had a lot of struggles early on in the year, especially offensively on the wide receiver group. Drops were a big problem. Let's hope that the spotlight of the Super Bowl doesn't bring that back into play. Again, they've been really good lately and have seemed to overcome that issue. But if something like that comes back and Patrick Mahomes doesn't get the help that he needs, that could prevent them from winning. Now, we just got off the Taylor Swift thing, so we got to bring it up just one more time. But could a reason that they lose this football game be because of that distraction? You can't think that if they lose this game that that's not going to be mentioned, right? And that won't be a part of it. That's all I'll spend on it now. I just want to make sure that is mentioned in this negative list because it could be a part of it. All right, let's look at some predictions by some big sources. Let's see what the experts are saying about Super Bowl 58. Experts at ESPN give the Chiefs a 76.6% shot at winning the Super Bowl. The 49ers at 23.4%. 52 of their 64 experts did predict, though, that the game will be within one score or one touchdown. 31-21 or 27-24 were the 2 most popular scores, with the Chiefs coming out victorious in each of those. The analytics through ESPN actually favor San Francisco, however, believe it or not. So the experts say the Chiefs, analytics say San Francisco, according to ESPN. CBS Sports, 8 of their 8 experts say that the Kansas City Chiefs will win the Super Bowl. Over at the Sporting News, all 5 of their experts also said the Chiefs will win the Super Bowl. Over at The Athletic, 7 out of their 8 experts predicted that Kansas City will win the Super Bowl. To me, it seems overwhelmingly favorited towards Kansas City. That's really what I keep running into. I mean, I think I've seen arguments made both ways, but ultimately, most sources seem to be leaning towards Kansas City. And we talked about betting odds and where that's now gone to at -2.5. all the way from, I think it started at 1. People are putting money on Kansas City. That's changing the betting line. And that's certainly showing here from what I found with expert predictions. All right, let's get into it. Johnny Gaz's prediction here for Super Bowl 58. Who's going to win this football game? After all the research I did, looking at the statistics, looking at what the experts say, going off of my gut feel, I really think the Kansas City Chiefs win Super Bowl 58. And I know, okay, yes, you can blow smoke at me if you want to. Hey, Lions fan, of course you're not going to want the 49ers to win. Well, you know what? You're goddamn right. No, I'm just kidding. I really looked at this as objectively as I could. And I think Kansas City has the experience necessary, the right coaching with Andy Reid. They've been there before. And they have the guy. Patrick Mahomes is him. Sometimes I don't even like saying that. I'm not even a Patrick Mahomes detractor, but he is him. He's been there before, and I feel like he's not going to let them lose this football game. Another reason I think Kansas City wins this football game, we talked about a little bit earlier. On the other side of them is San Francisco, and they have not started well recently and over those last 2 playoff games. And if that happens here again, and Kansas City, I think, is prone to maybe a fast start, I think that hurts the 49ers really bad. I don't think they can overcome a deficit here. And I think if Kansas City goes up, I think they control the game. And I don't think they allow them back in it. So that could play a major role in Super Bowl 58. When I looked at both units, just simply offenses comparing to defenses, I think Kansas City, in my opinion, has the edge over the San Francisco defense at this point, at least the way that the 2 units are playing at this time. So to me, Kansas City had the edge there. I also thought the Kansas City defense has the edge over the San Francisco offense. The way that Steve Spagnuolo has gotten this team to play in the playoffs and going into the Super Bowl, unless Brock Purdy spins some magic, unless their big-time players for San Francisco really explode and overcome that, I think that Kansas City can do enough to maintain them to win the football game. I don't think it's a blowout. I really don't. I don't think Kansas City runs away with this by any means, but I think they can control it to a certain extent. But more than anything, it's where we started, and it's where I'm going to end. Patrick Mahomes, he will win Super Bowl 58's MVP, and Kansas City will win this football game. I'm going to predict the score to be Kansas City 34, San Francisco 24. And as I mentioned, I think Kansas City controls it from start to finish. I think they take the ball, they score, and they really just control the game from that point on. I do think it's going to be a good game. You might see San Francisco battle back. They have, like I said, all playoff long, so I don't expect them to just die out. You got stars all over the field. You got Taylor Swift all over the field. You're going to have a fantastic halftime show with Usher. You got Reba McEntire singing the national anthem. It's going to be a great experience. Like every Super Bowl Sunday, you're excited. I'm excited. I can't wait to watch it. I hope you guys have a fantastic Super Bowl Sunday. More than anything else, have fun, eat a ton of food, just have a great time and enjoy this. So that'll do it for our Super Bowl 58 game preview. Thank you for coming along with me. Again, I'm Johnny Gaz. I really appreciate you guys coming along for the video. I'm hoping to have a Super Bowl prop bet preview coming up before the game on Sunday, so definitely be on the lookout for that. We might talk about some of the